November 2023. Margaret Foster, 77 years old, sat in her small Baltimore apartment reviewing her monthly expenses. Fixed income, $1,511 from Social Security after a 38-year career teaching middle school English. After rent, $975. Utilities, $165. Medications, $180. And basic necessities, she had $191 remaining each month. Groceries were her most flexible expense, the one category where she could cut back when other bills ran high. Her daughter, Jennifer Morrison, 49 years old, had offered a solution 2 years earlier. Jennifer was a marketing executive at a Baltimore consulting firm, made $140,000 annually, lived in a Canton townhouse with her husband and 2 teenagers. In November 2021, Jennifer had set up an Instacart account for Margaret. "Mom, I'll handle your groceries. You just order what you need weekly, and I'll pay the bill. Don't worry about the cost. I want you eating well." Margaret had been grateful, overwhelmed with gratitude. Her daughter, her successful busy daughter, was taking care of her food. She wouldn't have to choose between medication and meals, wouldn't have to survive on canned soup and crackers during expensive months. For 2 years, November 2021 through November 2023, Margaret ordered groceries through Instacart weekly. She was careful, conservative, didn't want to be a burden. She ordered modestly, store-brand items, basics, nothing extravagant. Her weekly orders averaged $68, sometimes $62 if she skipped items, sometimes $75 if she needed cleaning supplies, but always modest, always grateful. She'd text Jennifer after each delivery, "Groceries arrived, thank you so much honey." Jennifer would respond, "No problem Mom Red Heart," or, "Of course, love you." Margaret assumed she was being reasonable, thought $68 weekly was appropriate for someone living alone, eating simple meals, not wasting her daughter's money. She never asked what Jennifer's own grocery budget was, never compared, never questioned whether the assistance she was receiving was adequate or just barely sufficient. What Margaret didn't know was that Jennifer tracked all expenses meticulously. Marketing executives understand data. Jennifer kept spreadsheets, categorized spending, prepared tax documents quarterly. She claimed Margaret as a dependent on her taxes, legally allowable since she provided more than half of Margaret's support. The dependent deduction saved Jennifer approximately $4,000 annually in taxes. What Margaret didn't know was that Jennifer used the same Instacart account for her own family's groceries. Separate delivery address, but same account, same statement, same records. Jennifer's weekly grocery orders averaged $340. Organic produce, premium meats, artisan cheeses, imported wines, restaurant-quality ingredients. Jennifer spent 5 times more on her own family's groceries than she spent on her mother's survival. But it was Jennifer's accountant, Robert Kim, who first noticed the disparity. November 2023, preparing Jennifer's quarterly estimated tax payments, reviewing expenses. He saw the Instacart charges, 2 delivery addresses, vastly different spending patterns. Margaret Foster, 1247, Harford Road, $68 average weekly, $3,536 annually. Jennifer Morrison, 843, Lakewood Avenue, $340 average weekly, $17,680 annually. Robert stared at the numbers, did math. Jennifer was spending $14,144 more on her own groceries than on her mother's, nearly 5 times more, while claiming her mother as a dependent for tax purposes, while receiving a $4,000 annual tax benefit for supporting her mother. Robert had been Jennifer's accountant for 6 years, had prepared her taxes, advised on deductions, helped optimize her financial position. But this felt wrong. Not illegal. The dependent deduction was legitimate if Jennifer provided support, but morally wrong. Jennifer was restricting her mother to poverty-level groceries while eating luxury meals herself and profiting from the tax benefits of claiming her mother as dependent. Robert called Jennifer. "I need to discuss something about your mother's expenses. Is there a problem with the deduction? The deduction is legal, but I'm concerned about the ethics. You're spending $340 weekly on your family's groceries and $68 on your mother's. That's a 5-to-1 ratio. and you're claiming $4,000 in tax benefits for supporting her. You're essentially profiting from keeping her on a restricted food budget. Jennifer was defensive immediately. I'm helping her. I pay for all her food. She'd be eating nothing if I didn't pay. She's eating generic canned soup and white bread. Your receipts show organic salmon and artisan cheese. You're claiming you're supporting her adequately, but you're feeding her food you'd never accept for your own family. I'm not going to reduce my family's quality of life to match my mother's budget. That's ridiculous. She's one person. I'm feeding four. Of course my bill is higher. Jennifer, it's not about the total amount. It's about the per-person spending and the quality. You're choosing premium organic options for yourself while restricting her to budget basics, and you're benefiting financially from that restriction through tax deductions. Are you saying I'm doing something illegal? No. I'm saying you're doing something unethical. And I can't continue as your accountant if you won't adjust this. It compromises my professional integrity. Then you're fired. I'll find someone who understands that I'm being generous helping my mother at all. Robert Kim hung up, sat with the decision. He'd lost a client, but kept his integrity. But he couldn't stop thinking about Margaret Foster. About the 77-year-old woman ordering $68 in groceries weekly while her daughter ate $340 in luxury meals and claimed tax deductions for supporting her. Robert did something he'd never done before. He printed 2 years of Instacart receipts, both addresses, side-by-side comparison, put them in an envelope with a typed note. Mrs. Foster, you should know what your daughter spends on her own groceries compared to what she allows you. You should also know she claims you as a dependent on her taxes, saving $4,000 yearly, while keeping you on a restricted food budget she would never accept for herself. He mailed it anonymously to Margaret's address. Then he waited to see what would happen when an elderly woman discovered her daughter was profiting from her poverty. What happened would expose not just Jennifer Morrison but a widespread pattern. Adult children who provide minimal support to elderly parents while claiming maximum tax benefits, who help just enough to qualify for deductions but not enough to actually provide dignity. Jennifer's grocery receipts would become evidence, proof that generosity without adequacy is just exploitation disguised as care. This is the story of the grocery delivery receipts, and the daughter who fed her mother on $68 weekly while eating $340 meals herself and claiming tax breaks for her charity. Margaret Foster received the envelope on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-November 2023. No return address. Typed label. Inside, 2 years of Instacart receipts, printed in 2 columns for comparison. Left column, her orders. Right column, Jennifer's orders. Margaret sat at her small kitchen table and began reading. Her receipts were familiar. She remembered ordering these items. Store-brand bread, $1.79. Generic pasta, $1.29. Canned soup, 4 for $5. Frozen vegetables, $2.49. Everything budget. Everything basic. Everything chosen to minimize cost. Then she looked at the right column. Jennifer's receipts from the same weeks. The contrast was immediate and devastating. Week of January 15, 2023, Margaret's order. Store-brand wheat bread $1.79, generic peanut butter $3.49, canned tuna 4 for $5, frozen mixed vegetables $2.49, bananas $2.99, store-brand coffee $6.99, white rice $4.29, chicken thighs $8.99. Total, $62.34. Jennifer's order same week, artisan sourdough $7.99, almond butter $12.99, fresh Atlantic salmon $34.50, organic vegetable medley $9.99, organic Honeycrisp apples $8.47, Italian espresso beans $19.99, arborio rice $6.99, organic free-range chicken breast $22.45, aged cheddar $11.80, prosciutto $15.99, truffle oil $24.99, organic mixed greens $6.99, Greek yogurt $8.99, imported pasta $8.50, San Pellegrino sparkling water $12.99. Total, $374.61. Margaret stared at the numbers. She'd eaten canned tuna for $1.25 per can. Jennifer had eaten fresh salmon for $34.50. Margaret had generic coffee for $6.99. Jennifer had Italian espresso for $19.99. Margaret had store-brand bread for $1.79. Jennifer had artisan sourdough for $7.99. She continued reading. Week after week, month after month. 2 years of receipts. The pattern was consistent and heartbreaking. Margaret's orders, always generic, always budget, always basic. Canned goods, frozen vegetables, store-brand everything, cheapest cuts of meat when she bought meat at all. Many weeks no meat, just pasta, rice, canned soup. Jennifer's orders, premium everything. Organic produce, grass-fed beef, wild-caught seafood, imported cheeses, artisan breads, specialty oils, organic dairy, premium wines. Every week included items that cost more individually than Margaret's entire order. Margaret did the math that the anonymous note had provided. Her average weekly order, $68. Jennifer's average, $340. Over 2 years, Margaret had received $7,072 in grocery support. Jennifer had spent $35,360 on her own family's groceries in the same period. But it wasn't just the dollar amounts. It was the choices, the quality. Margaret was eating food Jennifer would never serve her own family. Food Margaret knew Jennifer would reject as inadequate, unhealthy, depressing. The note included one more detail. Jennifer claimed Margaret as a dependent on her taxes. Saved approximately $4,000 annually. Over 2 years, $8,000 in tax benefits from claiming she was supporting her mother. Margaret felt something she rarely felt. Anger. Not sadness. Not embarrassment. Anger. Jennifer was feeding her poverty-level groceries while eating luxury meals and profiting from it. Getting tax breaks for providing support that was barely adequate. Restricting Margaret's food budget while refusing to restrict her own. Acting generous while being stingy. Margaret requested her own Instacart account history. Everything she'd ordered over 2 years. The company sent it within days. She printed it, read through it with new eyes. She saw how she'd been self-limiting, putting items in cart, then removing them to keep costs down, choosing canned over fresh to save money, skipping meat when the total got too high, making food choices based not on nutrition or preference but on not wanting to burden Jennifer. She'd been grateful for $68 weekly while her daughter spent $340. Had thanked Jennifer profusely for keeping her at poverty-level nutrition while Jennifer ate restaurant-quality meals. Had felt like she was receiving generous help when she was actually receiving restricted charity. Margaret called Jennifer. It was a Thursday evening. Jennifer answered on the 4th ring. Mom, everything okay? I received something in the mail. 2 years of grocery receipts. Mine and yours. From the same Instacart account. Silence. Then, who sent you that? Does it matter? Is it accurate? Mom, I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. Do you spend $340 weekly on your own groceries while limiting me to $68? I'm not limiting you to anything. You order what you want. I pay for it. That's the arrangement. Do you spend $340 weekly on your family's food? My family is 4 people. You're 1 person. Of course my bill is higher. It's not 4 times higher, Jennifer. It's 5 times higher. And it's not about the total. It's about what you're choosing to eat versus what I'm choosing to eat because I don't want to burden you. You're eating organic salmon. I'm eating canned tuna. You're eating artisan bread. I'm eating store-brand white bread. You would never accept the food I'm eating, but you're comfortable providing it to me. I'm helping you. You'd have nothing if I wasn't paying. You're keeping me at poverty nutrition while eating luxury meals yourself, and claiming me as a dependent for tax deductions. You're saving $4,000 a year in taxes while restricting my food budget to barely adequate. That's not fair. I'm being generous. Most people don't help their parents at all. Most people don't profit from their help. You're getting $4,000 annually in tax benefits while spending $3,536 on my food. You're making $464 profit on my poverty. That's a disgusting way to frame this. That's an accurate way to frame this. You're benefiting financially from keeping my food budget low while your food budget is 5 times higher. I'm not having this conversation. You're being ungrateful. I'm being honest. For 2 years I've thanked you profusely for $68 weekly groceries. I felt guilty every time I ordered. I've limited myself to not burden you. And the whole time you've been eating $340 meals and claiming tax deductions for supporting me. You're not supporting me adequately. You're supporting me minimally while benefiting financially. I'm done with this. If you don't want my help anymore, fine. Pay for your own groceries. I will. I'd rather eat less than eat knowing you're eating 5 times better while claiming you're taking care of me. Jennifer hung up. Margaret sat in her apartment surrounded by 2 years of receipts. Evidence of her daughter's priorities. Proof that Jennifer valued organic salmon for herself more than adequate nutrition for her mother. Margaret had one decision to make. Stay quiet about this, or expose it. Let Jennifer continue profiting from minimal support, or show people what modern eldercare actually looked like when adult children helped just enough to claim tax benefits but not enough to provide dignity. She thought about the anonymous accountant who'd sent the receipts, someone with integrity who'd lost a client to keep it, someone who thought Margaret deserved to know the truth. Margaret decided the truth deserved to be known more widely. Margaret Foster contacted an elder law attorney, Patricia Chong, in late November 2023. Patricia's practice focused on elder financial abuse, adult children exploiting parents' resources, misusing power of attorney, neglecting legal obligations. Margaret wasn't sure if her situation qualified as abuse, but she knew it felt wrong. Patricia reviewed the receipts. 2 years of grocery comparisons. $68 weekly versus $340 weekly. Tax deduction of $4,000 annually for providing $3,536 in support. Listen to Margaret describe self-limiting her orders, feeling guilty, thanking Jennifer profusely for inadequate support. Mrs. Foster, this isn't illegal in the technical sense. Your daughter is providing support, more than half your annual living expenses when you include groceries, which makes the dependent deduction legitimate. But it's ethically problematic. She's restricting your nutrition to poverty level while eating luxury meals and profiting from tax benefits. It's exploitation disguised as generosity. Can anything be done? Legally, it's difficult. The IRS allows dependent deductions if certain support thresholds are met. Jennifer meets them. But there's no requirement that the support be adequate or dignified, just that it exists. However, there are other avenues. Adult Protective Services investigates financial exploitation. And there's public accountability. If this became known, the ethical implications might pressure Jennifer to change. I don't want to destroy my daughter's life. I understand. But she's benefiting financially from your poverty. She's claiming generosity while providing inadequacy. Other elderly parents might be experiencing this too. Adult children helping just enough to claim tax benefits but not enough to provide genuine support. Your receipts are evidence of a larger problem. Margaret thought about it for a week. She wasn't vindictive, didn't want revenge, but she thought about other elderly people in her situation, grateful for minimal help, not realizing their adult children were profiting from that minimalism, thanking their children for inadequate support while those children ate luxury meals and claimed tax breaks. She gave Patricia permission to file a complaint with Adult Protective Services and the IRS, not to punish Jennifer specifically, but to create a record, to establish that this pattern, minimal support maximized for tax benefits, constituted financial exploitation. Adult Protective Services investigated. December 2023. They interviewed Margaret, reviewed the receipts, examined Jennifer's tax returns, obtained via subpoena, analyzed the spending disparity. Their finding: while Ms. Morrison provides financial support to her mother that technically qualifies for dependent deduction, the support is inadequate relative to Ms. Morrison's own standard of living. Ms. Morrison restricts her mother to poverty-level nutrition, $68 weekly, while maintaining luxury-level nutrition for herself, $340 weekly, and claiming $4,000 annual tax benefit. This constitutes financial exploitation, using minimal support to maximize tax advantages while refusing to provide adequate support despite clear financial ability. The IRS opened an audit, not because the deduction was technically illegal, but because the relationship between support provided and tax benefit claimed raised questions. Were Jennifer's expenses for Margaret truly intended as support, or primarily as tax optimization? The audit examined, did Jennifer provide adequate support relative to her financial capacity? Was the support genuinely intended for Margaret's welfare, or structured to maximize tax benefits? Could Jennifer afford to provide better support but chose not to in order to minimize costs while maximizing deductions? IRS findings were nuanced. Ms. Morrison's dependent deduction is technically allowable under current tax code. However, the disparity between support provided to dependent and spending on herself raises ethical concerns about the intent of the support. Ms. Morrison spends 5x more on her own groceries than on her dependent mother's, while claiming $4,000 annual tax benefit for supporting said mother. This suggests support is structured to minimize cost and maximize tax advantage rather than to genuinely provide for mother's welfare. The IRS didn't disallow the deduction entirely, but they required Jennifer to repay the portion of the deduction that exceeded the actual support provided. Calculation: Jennifer claimed $4,000 annual deduction for 2 years equals $8,000 benefit. Actual support provided, $7,072 over 2 years. Deduction should have been $3,536 per year equals $7,072 total benefit. Overstated deduction, $928. With penalties, Jennifer owed $1,847 to the IRS. But the damage to Jennifer wasn't the $1,847. It was what happened when Adult Protective Services filed their public report. Maryland requires APS findings to be public record if exploitation is confirmed. Jennifer Morrison's case became public. Marketing executive claimed tax benefits for supporting elderly mother while restricting mother to poverty-level nutrition despite executive's luxury lifestyle. A Baltimore Sun reporter, Michael Torres, found the APS report doing routine checks of public records. He saw the grocery receipts attached as evidence, saw the contrast, $68 versus $340 weekly, store-brand canned soup versus organic salmon, dependent deduction claim for minimal support. He called Margaret for an interview. She hesitated, didn't want this to become a spectacle. But Michael explained, "Mrs. Foster, your daughter's not unique. Thousands of adult children are doing exactly this, helping parents just enough to claim tax benefits but not enough to actually provide dignity. Your receipts are proof. They show exactly what this looks like in practice. Other elderly people need to see this. They need to know they're not being unreasonable when they feel their children's support is inadequate." Margaret agreed to the interview. It published in the Baltimore Sun, January 2024, the $68 grocery budget, How Adult Children Profit from Minimal Elder Support. The article included side-by-side comparison of 1 week's receipts, Margaret's $68 canned soup and white bread versus Jennifer's $374 organic salmon and artisan cheese. 2-year spending totals, $7,072 for mother versus $35,360 for daughter's family. Tax deduction analysis, $8,000 in benefits from claiming mother as dependent. APS findings, financial exploitation through minimal support structured to maximize tax advantage. Margaret's statement, "I spent 2 years thanking my daughter for keeping me at poverty. Nutrition while she ate luxury meals and claimed tax benefits. I thought I was being a burden. I didn't realize I was being exploited." The article went viral locally, then nationally. Not because Jennifer was uniquely terrible, but because the receipts made the exploitation visible. Everyone understood grocery shopping. Everyone could compare canned soup to salmon, white bread to artisan sourdough, $68 budget to $340 budget. And everyone with elderly parents, or who were elderly parents themselves, recognized the pattern. Adult children claiming they were helping while providing inadequate support, acting generous while being stingy, benefiting financially from their parents' poverty. Jennifer's employer, Riverside Marketing Consultants, faced immediate backlash. Clients emailed, We don't want to work with a firm that employs someone who exploits her elderly mother for tax breaks. Employees complained. Jennifer talks about corporate social responsibility in meetings while restricting her mother to canned soup. It's hypocritical. Jennifer's professional reputation, built over 20 years in marketing, was crumbling because grocery receipts told a truth she couldn't spin. Jennifer Morrison attempted damage control with a public statement posted on LinkedIn, January 2024. Her marketing background told her, control the narrative, reframe the story, emphasize your generosity, minimize the criticism. Her statement: I want to address the recent article about my mother and our family situation. First, let me be clear. I love my mother deeply. For 2 years, I have paid for 100% of her groceries without complaint. That's over $7,000 in support I was never obligated to provide. The article makes it seem like I was restricting her budget. That's false. My mother ordered whatever she wanted through Instacart. I never told her what to buy or set spending limits. She chose those items herself. If she wanted organic salmon, she could have ordered it. She didn't. The comparison to my family's grocery spending is misleading. I have a husband and 2 teenage boys. Teenagers eat enormous amounts of food. My weekly bill reflects feeding 4 people, including growing adolescents with athletic schedules requiring high-calorie diets. Of course my bill is higher than my mother's. She's one person eating modest portions. As for the tax deduction, I followed all IRS rules. I provide more than half my mother's support, which legally qualifies her as my dependent. The deduction is not a profit. It's recognition of the financial burden I voluntarily assumed to care for my mother. I'm disappointed that my mother allowed this private family matter to become public. I've been nothing but supportive. The suggestion that I've exploited her is hurtful and false. I've done more for her than most adult children do for their parents. I hope we can move past this misunderstanding and focus on the fact that I stepped up when my mother needed help. That should be celebrated, not criticized. The statement was a catastrophic miscalculation. Instead of generating sympathy, it multiplied outrage. Responses on social media. She says her mom could have ordered organic salmon. Her mom was afraid to be a burden. That's elder abuse, making someone feel guilty for needing adequate food. I've done more than most adult children. You did the bare minimum while eating luxury meals and claiming tax breaks. That's not generosity. That's exploitation you're defending. Notice she doesn't deny the 5-to-1 spending ratio. Doesn't deny eating $374 meals while mom ate $68 canned soup. Just says, teenagers eat a lot. Your mother deserved to eat well too. The phrase, financial burden I voluntarily assumed, is disgusting. Your mother isn't a burden, and you profited from helping her via tax deductions. The Baltimore Sun published a follow-up article analyzing Jennifer's response. Marketing executive's defense reveals deeper problem. Adult children who think minimal support equals adequate care. The article included expert commentary. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, geriatric social worker. Jennifer's statement is textbook rationalization. She claims her mother chose those items, ignoring the psychological pressure elderly parents feel to minimize costs. Margaret wasn't freely choosing canned soup. She was self-limiting to avoid burdening her daughter. Jennifer created an environment where her mother felt she had to restrict herself, then blamed her mother for that restriction. Tax attorney Robert Chen, not the accountant, different person. Jennifer's defense of the tax deduction misses the ethical point. Yes, the deduction is legal, but she's claiming a benefit for supporting her mother while spending 5 times more on herself. She's profiting from keeping her mother's support minimal. That's legal exploitation. Nutritionist Dr. Amanda Park, a $68 weekly grocery budget for an elderly person is poverty-level nutrition. It forces reliance on processed foods, canned goods, minimal fresh produce, inadequate protein. Meanwhile, Jennifer's $340 budget provides organic produce, quality protein, balanced nutrition. She's eating health while providing her mother with malnutrition and defending it. Margaret, interviewed again for the follow-up article, addressed Jennifer's defense directly. Jennifer says I chose those items. She's right, I did choose them, but I chose them because I was terrified of being a burden. Every week I'd put items in my cart, then remove them because the total seemed too high. I'd replace fresh vegetables with frozen because frozen was cheaper. I'd skip meat entirely some weeks because meat was expensive. I was choosing based on fear of asking too much for my daughter, not based on what I actually needed or wanted. Jennifer says teenagers eat a lot. I know, I raised one. But the issue isn't that teenagers need food. It's that Jennifer provided her teenagers with organic, premium, healthy food while providing me with generic, processed, inadequate food. Her sons got quality nutrition. I got survival rations. That's not about quantity. That's about her valuing their health over mine. Jennifer says she's done more than most adult children. Maybe that's true. But more than most isn't the same as adequate. If most adult children are providing inadequate support, doing slightly more than inadequate is still inadequate. I don't want to destroy my daughter. But I want other elderly parents to understand. If your adult children are helping you but you feel guilty every time you need that help, if you're constantly limiting yourself to avoid being a burden, if your children are living luxury lives while keeping you at poverty level, that's not generosity. That's control disguised as care. The interview resonated powerfully. Thousands of elderly people recognized themselves in Margaret's description, recognized the guilt, the self-limiting, the fear of burdening successful children, recognized that they'd been thanking their children for inadequate support while those children lived comfortably. And thousands of adult children recognized themselves in Jennifer's defense, recognized the rationalizations. I'm helping more than most. They're choosing what to buy. I'm not obligated to support them at all. Recognized that they'd been congratulating themselves for minimal support while refusing to provide adequate support despite clear financial ability. One viral Twitter thread by an elder care activist captured the moment. Jennifer Morrison's grocery receipts exposed something millions of families hide: adult children who help parents just enough to feel generous but not enough to provide dignity. Jennifer spent $340 per week on organic salmon, while mom ate $68 per week canned soup. Jennifer's not an outlier. She's just the one who got caught. Check your own grocery spending versus what you provide aging parents. Check whether you're eating quality nutrition while they eat survival rations. Check if you're claiming tax benefits for supporting them while restricting that support to minimize your costs. Margaret Foster spent 2 years thanking her daughter for poverty-level groceries. How many elderly parents are thanking their children for inadequate support right now? How many are self-limiting to avoid being burdens while their children eat luxury meals? The receipts don't lie. Jennifer's receipts showed $68 versus $340. What do yours show? The thread had 234,000 retweets. Thousands of people responded with their own grocery receipt comparisons. Some were embarrassed confessions. I just checked. I spend $280 per week on my family. Give my dad $75 per month for groceries. I thought I was being helpful. I'm being stingy. Others were defensive. My parents made poor financial choices their whole lives. I'm not obligated to fund their retirement comfort. But those defensive responses were ratioed heavily. Your parents fed you for 18 years. You can't feed them adequately in their 80s? That's not about their financial choices. That's about your character. The grocery receipts had become more than Jennifer's scandal. They'd become a mirror forcing adult children nationwide to examine their own behavior, to confront uncomfortable truths about whether their help was actually helpful or just minimally adequate to assuage guilt. Jennifer's LinkedIn post, intended to defend her actions, had instead become Exhibit A in a national conversation about elder financial neglect. Her rationalizations were being dissected, quoted, used as examples of exactly how adult children justify inadequate support. She'd tried to control the narrative. Instead, the receipts controlled it. Because numbers don't require spin. $68 versus $340 tells its own story. Canned soup versus organic salmon speaks for itself. Jennifer's marketing expertise was useless against arithmetic. February 2024. Jennifer Morrison's employer, Riverside Marketing Consultants, held an emergency partners meeting. Jennifer wasn't invited. They were discussing her. The firm had lost 3 major clients in 2 weeks. All cited the same reason: we can't work with a firm that employs someone who exploits her elderly mother for tax benefits. It's a values misalignment. Partners reviewed the situation. Jennifer was a senior vice president, had been with the firm for 12 years, brought in approximately $2.3 million in annual client revenue. But her continued employment was now costing more than she generated. Managing partner David Chen called Jennifer the next day. "Jennifer, we need to discuss your status with the firm. This is about the grocery receipts." "Yes. We've lost clients. Other clients are expressing concerns. Your personal situation is impacting the firm's reputation." "My personal situation is being misrepresented. I helped my mother. I'm being unfairly vilified." "Jennifer, I've seen the receipts. The actual receipts. $68 versus $340 weekly. You were eating organic salmon while your mother ate canned soup. That's not misrepresentation. That's documentation. I followed all legal requirements." Legal isn't the same as ethical. You're a marketing professional. You understand brand values, corporate responsibility, stakeholder perception. What message does it send if we employ someone who restricts her mother to poverty nutrition while living a luxury lifestyle and claiming tax benefit? "So I'm being fired for helping my mother. You're being placed on unpaid administrative leave while we assess the situation. If client departures continue, we'll need to make permanent decisions." Jennifer was furious. Her career, built over 20 years, was being threatened because of grocery receipts, because her mother had allowed private financial details to become public, because people couldn't mind their own business about family matters. She hired a crisis PR consultant, expensive, $15,000 for a 1-month contract. The consultant, Maria Santos, reviewed everything: the receipts, the articles, Jennifer's LinkedIn post, the social media responses. Maria's assessment: "Jennifer, I'm going to be brutally honest. Your situation is unspinnable. The receipts are objective evidence. You spent 5 times more on your groceries than your mother's. You claimed tax deductions for supporting her. No amount of PR can make that look good. So what do I do?" You acknowledge you were wrong. Genuinely. You commit to changing, actually changing, not just saying you'll change. You increase your mother's grocery budget significantly. You voluntarily repay the tax deductions even beyond what the IRS required. You become an advocate for adequate elder support. You use your marketing skills to help other people avoid your mistakes. That's admitting, "I was wrong." You were wrong. The receipts prove it. Admission isn't weakness here. It's the only path forward. Defending your actions makes you look worse. Doubling down on $68 is adequate when you spent $340 on yourself makes you look monstrous. "I can't admit publicly that I exploited my mother." Then you can't rehabilitate your reputation. People aren't angry because you made a mistake. They're angry because you're defending the mistake. Because you're claiming generosity while the receipts show stinginess. If you genuinely acknowledged the inadequacy, apologized sincerely, and committed to substantial change, some people would forgive you. But if you keep defending $68 groceries while eating $340 meals, you're finished professionally. Jennifer didn't take Maria's advice. Fired her after 2 weeks, having paid $7,500 for counsel she refused to follow. Hired a different consultant who told her what she wanted to hear: "This will blow over." Social media has a short attention span. Just stay quiet and let it fade. But it didn't fade. Because the receipts kept circulating. Because other adult children kept finding the story, checking their own receipts, realizing they were doing similar things. Because Margaret Foster had become a symbol. The elderly mother eating canned soup while her successful daughter ate salmon and claimed tax breaks. March 2024. Riverside Marketing Consultants made their decision. Jennifer was terminated. Not because of the grocery receipts specifically, but because her continued employment was incompatible with client retention. The firm issued a statement: "Riverside Marketing Consultants is committed to values of integrity, social responsibility, and ethical conduct. After careful consideration, we have parted ways with Jennifer Morrison. We wish her well in her future endeavors." Jennifer's severance package was minimal: 2 months' pay, Cobra health insurance continuation, no bonuses. She'd earned $140,000 annually. Lost her income, her professional reputation, her career trajectory. All because of grocery receipts showing she'd fed her mother on $68 weekly while eating $340 meals herself. She applied to other marketing firms, discovered quickly that her name was poison. Every HR department had seen the Baltimore Sun articles. Every hiring manager had questions. Can you address the situation with your mother and the grocery receipts? Jennifer would try to explain, defend, rationalize, wouldn't get callbacks. By April 2024, Jennifer had been unemployed for 2 months. Her savings were depleting. Her husband, Mark, was supportive initially but growing frustrated. You need to apologize to your mother publicly. This won't end until you admit you were wrong. I wasn't wrong. I helped her. You helped her inadequately while helping yourself lavishly. The receipts prove it. Everyone sees it. You're the only person who doesn't. You're taking their side. I'm taking reality's side. You spent $340 weekly on our groceries while giving your mother $68. That's indefensible. You know it. You just won't admit it. Their marriage strained. Mark wasn't considering divorce, but he was considering distance. Sleeping in the guest room. Avoiding conversations about the receipts. Resentful that Jennifer's pride was costing their family financially while she refused to simply apologize. Jennifer sat in her Canton townhouse, $3, $200 monthly mortgage, scrolling through job listing, knowing none would hire her. Her mother was 3 miles away, eating groceries Margaret now paid for herself from her $1,511 monthly Social Security. Margaret had stopped accepting Jennifer's support entirely. Would rather eat less than accept help from someone who'd been feeding her inadequately while eating lavishly. Jennifer looked at her own kitchen. Organic produce in the refrigerator, artisan bread on the counter, imported cheese in the drawer, premium coffee on the shelf. All the items she'd bought habitually for years while her mother ate canned soup and store-brand crackers. For the first time, Jennifer felt something other than defensiveness. She felt shame. Not because of public criticism, but because she finally saw what the receipts showed. She'd valued her own comfort infinitely more than her mother's dignity. She'd spent $35,360 on her family's groceries over 2 years while spending $7,072 on her mother's survival. 5-to-1 ratio. And she defended it, had claimed it was adequate, had blamed her mother for choosing those items. The receipts hadn't lied. Jennifer had. To others, to herself, about who she was as a daughter, about what her priorities revealed. She opened her phone, pulled up her mother's contact, stared at it, needed to apologize, couldn't find words that felt adequate. I'm sorry I fed you canned soup while eating salmon, sounded ridiculous, but it was true. It was exactly what she needed to say. She couldn't make the call, put the phone down. The shame was too heavy, admission too painful. Easier to stay defensive, stay unemployed, stay isolated than to confront what the receipts proved about her character. The grocery receipts sat in a file on Margaret's kitchen table. Evidence, truth, permanent record of Jennifer's priorities measured in dollars and food quality. Jennifer had chosen organic salmon over her mother's dignity, and that choice, documented in Instacart receipts, had destroyed everything she'd built professionally while revealing everything she'd failed personally. May 2024. The grocery receipts story had evolved beyond Jennifer Morrison. It had become a movement. #CheckYourGroceryReceipts trending on social media, prompting thousands of adult children to examine their own spending patterns relative to support provided to elderly parents. The pattern was widespread and disturbing. A researcher at Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Lisa Park, conducted a survey of 2,400 adults with living parents over age 70. Results published in Journal of Elder Care, June 2024. 67% of respondents provided some financial support to elderly parents. Of those providing support, average monthly contribution, $340. Average respondent monthly spending on own household groceries, $892 ratio, 2.6-to-1. Respondent spending 2.6x more on own food than parent support. 43% of respondents claimed parents as dependents for tax purposes. Of those claiming dependents, 31% acknowledged support provided was minimal but legally sufficient. When asked, would you accept the quality of life your providing your parents for yourself? 74% answered no. The data confirmed what Margaret Foster's receipts had illustrated. Millions of adult children were providing inadequate support to elderly parents while living comfortable lives themselves, helping just enough to assuage guilt or claim tax benefits, but not enough to provide genuine dignity. Dr. Park's analysis. We're seeing a generation of adult children who intellectually acknowledge obligation to elderly parents but practically prioritize their own comfort. They provide support measured not by what does my parent need, but by what's the minimum I can provide and still feel like a good child. Margaret Foster's receipts made this visible because grocery spending is universal. Everyone eats, everyone understands food quality, everyone can compare canned soup to salmon. Elder advocacy organizations seized on the research. AARP launched a campaign, Adequacy Over Minimums, supporting aging parents with dignity, not just legality. The campaign included tools, grocery spending calculators, dignity budget worksheets, tax deduction ethics guides. Faith communities incorporated the message. A widely shared sermon by Reverend James Mitchell, Baltimore. Honor thy father and mother doesn't mean feed them canned soup while you eat steak. It doesn't mean help them just enough to claim tax deductions. It means ensuring their final years have dignity comparable to the life they provided you. If your parents fed you fresh vegetables and quality meat growing up, you owe them at least that standard in their old age. Jennifer Morrison's receipts showed dishonor disguised as help. Let's examine whether we're doing the same. The movement created real changes. A viral TikTok trend emerged. Adult children filming themselves grocery shopping for parents, showing receipts, demonstrating adequate support. Bought my mom groceries today, $140. Bought my family groceries, $280. 2-to-1 ratio. Both get quality nutrition. That's how it should be. Hashtag check your receipts. But not everyone changed willingly. Defensive responses proliferated. One viral counterthread by @adult child survival. My parents didn't save for retirement. Made poor financial choices their whole lives. Now I'm supposed to sacrifice my family's quality of life to fix their mistakes? I provide support, but I'm not going to lower my standard of living because they didn't plan ahead. The counterthread was ratioed heavily. Your parents fed you for 18 years without checking if you'd earned it. You owe them basic dignity regardless of their financial planning. If you can afford organic salmon, you can afford to feed them better than canned soup. Margaret Foster watched the movement unfold with mixed emotions. She'd never intended to start a national conversation, had just wanted people to know that Jennifer's generosity was actually restriction. But millions of elderly people were now empowered to ask their children for better support. Millions of adult children were examining their own behavior. Some adult children reached out to Margaret directly. Emails, letters, social media messages. Most were grateful. Thank you for speaking up. I checked my receipts. I was doing exactly what your daughter did. I've doubled my mother's grocery budget and committed to maintaining that. Your courage changed my behavior. But some were hostile. You destroyed your daughter's life over groceries. You're vindictive and ungrateful. She was helping you and you repaid her with public humiliation. I hope you're happy knowing she's unemployed because of you. Margaret struggled with the hostile responses. She hadn't wanted Jennifer unemployed, marriage strained, professionally ruined. She'd wanted Jennifer to acknowledge inadequate support and change. The consequences had exceeded her intentions. She told the Baltimore Sun in a follow-up interview, June 2024, "People ask if I regret exposing Jennifer. Honestly, I regret that it was necessary. I wish Jennifer had seen the receipts and thought, I'm spending 5 times more on myself than mom. That's not right. I should adjust. I wish she'd acknowledged the inadequacy privately and committed to change. But she didn't. She defended feeding me $68 in canned goods while eating $340 in luxury foods. She defended claiming tax benefits for minimal support. I didn't destroy her life. Her choices did. The receipts just documented those choices. Meanwhile, Jennifer remained unemployed, bitter, defensive, refused to apologize publicly, refused to acknowledge wrongdoing beyond, I could have communicated better. No marketing firm would hire her. Her reputation was permanently associated with grocery receipt exploitation. She'd burned through her savings. By July 2024, Jennifer and Mark were considering selling the Canton townhouse, couldn't afford the mortgage on Mark's single income. Their lifestyle contracted dramatically. Ironically, their grocery budget decreased from $340 weekly to $180 weekly. They were experiencing financial constraint for the first time. Jennifer never acknowledged the irony. She was now living on a restricted budget similar to what she'd imposed on her mother, choosing generic items over premium options, skipping luxury ingredients, making do with adequate rather than optimal. Margaret, surprisingly, was financially more stable than she'd been in years. The viral attention had brought unexpected support. A GoFundMe created by elder advocacy groups, Support Margaret Foster, raised $87,000 from people outraged by Jennifer's treatment. Margaret was uncomfortable accepting it, but the organizers insisted, "You exposed a problem millions face. This money is from people who want to ensure you never have to choose between medication and food again." Margaret used some funds to move to a better apartment, $1,200 monthly, still affordable, but safer neighborhood, working appliances, better insulation. She donated $40,000 to organizations fighting elder poverty, kept enough to have security for her remaining years. She ate better too. Not lavishly, her poverty mindset from decades of tight budgets didn't evaporate overnight, but she allowed herself fresh vegetables now, real coffee instead of generic, occasional meat that wasn't the cheapest cut. She spent approximately $110 weekly on groceries, not Jennifer's $340, but not the restricted $68 either. Comfortable, adequate, dignified. The receipts had destroyed Jennifer's career but liberated Margaret from inadequate support, had sparked a national movement while ruining one daughter's reputation, had proven that sometimes exposure is the only path to change when people refuse to change voluntarily. The receipts sat in Margaret's apartment, filed carefully. Evidence of what she'd endured, proof of what she'd exposed, record of what she'd survived. 2 years of eating canned soup while her daughter ate salmon. Documented in Instacart receipts. Now preserved as testimony that adequate support requires more than legal minimums, requires dignity, requires caring about quality of life, not just maintenance of life. Jennifer's receipts had taught that lesson to millions. Whether Jennifer herself had learned it remained unclear. September 2024. 10 months after the grocery receipts went viral, Margaret Foster, now 78, met with estate attorney Patricia Chong to finalize her will. The GoFundMe support and subsequent donations meant Margaret had an estate worth protecting, approximately $52,000 remaining after her apartment move and charitable contributions. Patricia asked the inevitable question, "What about Jennifer, your daughter? How do you want to handle her in the will?" Margaret had thought about this extensively, struggled with it. Jennifer was still her daughter, still the child she'd raised, loved, supported through childhood and young adulthood. But Jennifer was also the woman who'd fed her canned soup while eating salmon and defended it as adequate. "I want to leave her something meaningful, not money, something that forces reflection." Margaret and Patricia crafted a specific bequest. Estate of Margaret Foster. Distribution. To Jennifer Morrison, I leave you 104 Instacart receipts, printed and bound. These represent every week over 2 years, November 2021 to November 2023, when you paid for my groceries. Each receipt shows what I ordered: canned soup, store-brand bread, frozen vegetables, generic coffee, basic survival rations totaling $68 weekly on average. Also included in this bequest, 104 corresponding receipts from your own grocery orders during those same weeks. Each shows what you ordered: organic salmon, artisan bread, imported cheeses, premium wines, luxury items totaling $340 weekly on average. These 208 receipts, 104 pairs showing the weeks we both ate, are your inheritance. They represent the 2 years you fed me poverty-level nutrition while eating luxury meals yourself and claiming tax deductions for supporting me. I hope every time you look at these receipts, you remember. I thanked you profusely for $68 in canned goods while you ate $340 in organic foods without guilt. I limited myself to avoid burdening you while you never limited yourself at all. I felt grateful for inadequate support while you felt generous providing it. These receipts are worth more than money as an inheritance. They're worth truth, worth documentation, worth remembering that supporting someone isn't the same as supporting them adequately, that legal minimums aren't the same as ethical adequacy, that claiming generosity while providing restriction is exploitation. You fed me what you'd never accept for yourself. These receipts prove it. Live with that knowledge. That's your inheritance. Additionally, I leave Jennifer $1 to ensure this will cannot be contested on grounds of accidental omission. You are intentionally receiving minimal inheritance because you provided minimal support while claiming maximum generosity. To Baltimore Elder Care Coalition, $25,000 for nutritional support programs helping elderly people afford adequate groceries. To Adult Protective Services of Maryland, $15,000 for investigations of financial elder exploitation. To remaining friends, neighbors, and organizations who supported me, $12,000 distributed among named beneficiaries. The will was signed, notarized, filed. Margaret felt peace about it. Jennifer would receive exactly what she'd given. Evidence of inadequacy, documented in receipts, impossible to rationalize away. Margaret didn't tell Jennifer about the will's contents, didn't want the conversation or confrontation. Jennifer would learn after Margaret died, whenever that was. Margaret was 78, had high blood pressure and diabetes, but was managing. Might have years left, might have months. Unpredictable. Mother and daughter had no contact through fall 2024. Jennifer never apologized, never acknowledged wrongdoing beyond the forced IRS repayment. Margaret didn't reach out. What would she say? I forgive you for feeding me canned soup while eating salmon? Some actions don't deserve forgiveness without genuine contrition. October 2024. Jennifer finally found employment. Not marketing. Those doors were permanently closed. She took a job as administrative coordinator at a small nonprofit. $48,000 annually. 1/3 her previous salary. The work was fine, the pay was adequate, but the career she'd built for 20 years was gone. Mark stayed with her. Their marriage survived, barely. They sold the Canton townhouse, couldn't afford $3,200 mortgage on reduced income. Moved to a small rental in Dundalk, $1,400 monthly. Older neighborhood, smaller space, none of the prestige of Canton. Their grocery budget was now $140 weekly, less than half their previous spending. They ate differently. More pasta, more rice, more vegetables, less meat, no imported cheeses or premium wines. Adequate nutrition but no luxury. Jennifer never acknowledged to Mark that this was poetic justice, that she was now living the constrained food budget she'd imposed on her mother. That $140 weekly for a family of 4 meant making choices, skipping items, buying generic, exactly what she'd expected her mother to do without complaint. December 2024. The holidays. Christmas approaching. Jennifer and Margaret had shared Christmas for 49 years, every year of Jennifer's life. This would be the first Christmas they spent apart by choice rather than circumstance. Jennifer thought about calling her mother. Couldn't do it. Pride prevented it. Admission prevented it. To call would be to acknowledge everything. The inadequate support, the luxury versus survival disparity, the defense of indefensible choices. Easier to stay silent than to confront truth. Margaret spent Christmas with neighbors from her building. Good people. Kind people. Not family, but friendly. She thought about Jennifer, about Christmases past, about teaching Jennifer to cook, to budget, to value family. Wondered where she'd failed that Jennifer could feed her poverty-level groceries without guilt. Or maybe she hadn't failed. Maybe Jennifer had simply chosen comfort over conscience, chosen luxury over obligation, chosen tax benefits over adequate support. Some failures aren't parental, they're personal. January 2025. Margaret turned 79. Jennifer didn't call. Margaret didn't expect her to. Their relationship had ended in grocery receipts, not with dramatic confrontation or mutual agreement, but with documented evidence that Jennifer valued organic salmon more than her mother's dignity. The receipts told that story. 104 weeks of disparity. $68 versus $340. Canned soup versus luxury meals. Gratitude for inadequacy versus comfort with exploitation. Some relationships end in arguments. Some end in distance. Margaret and Jennifer's relationship ended in arithmetic. In Instacart receipts showing exactly what Jennifer had provided and what Jennifer had kept for herself. The numbers didn't lie. $7,072 over 2 years for mother's survival. $35,360 for daughter's comfort. 5-to-1 ratio. That ratio was their final truth, their legacy, their documented reality. Margaret lived with that truth peacefully. She'd been vindicated, supported, proven correct. Jennifer lived with it miserably. She'd been exposed, unemployed, proven inadequate. The receipts remained. Physical documents in Margaret's apartment. Digital records in Instacart's servers. Published images in news articles. Permanent evidence of a daughter's priorities measured in grocery spending. 2 years of food choices. Documented. Undeniable. Forever. March 2026. 14 months after the grocery receipt scandal began. Margaret Foster was hospitalized with complications from diabetes and pneumonia. She was 79, frail, her health declining steadily over the winter. Jennifer learned about the hospitalization from her brother David, Margaret's son from a previous marriage, who lived in California. David had maintained minimal contact with family drama but called Jennifer when their mother was hospitalized. "She's at Johns Hopkins. It's serious. I think you should come." Jennifer drove to the hospital. First time seeing her mother in over 2 years. Margaret was in ICU, intubated, sedated, looked small in the hospital bed. Fragile, old. Jennifer sat beside her mother's bed for 3 hours. Didn't speak. Margaret couldn't hear her anyway, sedated for the ventilator. Just sat, processing years of resentment and guilt and pride and shame. Jennifer thought about the receipts. About $68 in canned soup versus $340 in organic salmon. About defending those choices, rationalizing them, refusing to acknowledge their inadequacy. About losing her career, marriage strain, financial decline, all because grocery receipts had exposed her priorities. She thought about calling the nurses, asking to speak to her mother's doctor, being involved in care decisions, then realized she had no right. She'd lost that right when she'd fed her mother canned soup while eating salmon, when she'd claimed tax deductions for minimal support, when she'd defended exploitation as generosity. Jennifer left without speaking to anyone. Drove home. Told Mark, "She's dying. I should feel sad. I feel numb. I destroyed our relationship over grocery receipts and pride. I could have apologized 2 years ago. Could have said, 'You're right, $68 was inadequate. I'll do better.' Instead I defended it. Now she's dying and I've lost any right to be at her bedside." Mark said nothing. What could he say? Jennifer was correct. She'd had years to acknowledge wrongdoing, years to change, years to apologize. She'd chosen pride over relationship. Now faced consequences. Margaret survived that hospitalization. Recovered enough to be discharged to her apartment with home health care. But she declined significantly. Was using oxygen, needed daily nursing visits, had limited mobility. Her remaining time was measured in months, not years. She updated her will one final time with Patricia Chong. "I want to make sure the receipt bequest to Jennifer is clear. All 208 receipts, properly organized, bound in a book. I want her to physically hold the evidence of what she did. Not just know abstractly that she fed me inadequately. Hold the actual receipts showing canned soup next to salmon, white bread next to artisan sourdough, $68 totals next to $340 totals. Physical proof she can't avoid." Patricia understood. You want her to feel the weight of it. Yes. 2 years of receipts weigh something. Literally and metaphorically. I want her to carry that weight. July 2026. Margaret died peacefully in her apartment with home hospice care. She was 79 years old. The decline from March hospitalization had been steady. David flew in from California for the final week. Sat with her. She died with him present. Jennifer learned of her mother's death from David's text. Mom passed this morning. Peaceful. I was with her. Funeral arrangements pending. Jennifer cried. Not the deep grief of losing a beloved parent, but the complicated grief of losing a relationship that had ended years before death. Crying for what they'd had, what they'd lost, what could never be repaired. The funeral was small. Margaret's friends from the apartment building. Elder advocacy people who'd championed her story. Patricia Chong, the attorney. David and his wife. And Jennifer, sitting alone in the back row, aware everyone knew who she was and what she'd done. Patricia gave a brief eulogy. Margaret Foster lived 80 years, taught middle school English for 38 years, raised 2 children, lived modestly, loved deeply, asked little. Her final years should have been comfortable. Instead, they were constrained by inadequate support from someone who had the means to help but chose not to. Margaret's grocery receipts exposed that inadequacy to the world. She didn't do it for revenge. She did it for truth. For other elderly parents who feel guilty asking for adequate help. For other adult children who need to see that legal minimums aren't the same as ethical adequacy. Margaret's legacy is teaching millions of people that supporting someone means more than just keeping them alive. It means ensuring they live with dignity comparable to what they provided you. Rest in peace, Margaret. Your receipts told the truth. The truth changed thousands of lives. After the funeral, Patricia held the will reading. Jennifer, David, and representatives from the charitable organizations Margaret had named. Patricia read the distributions. David received $5,000 and Margaret's personal items. He'd maintained relationship, visited when possible despite distance, called regularly. The charities received their amounts. Then Patricia read Jennifer's bequest. To my daughter Jennifer Morrison, I leave you 208 Instacart receipts, compiled and bound. These represent 2 years of grocery orders, 104 weeks of my orders at $68 average, 104 weeks of your orders at $340 average. Every receipt is paired. My canned soup next to your salmon, my white bread next to your artisan sourdough, my $68 total next to your $340 total. This is your inheritance. The physical weight of these receipts is approximately 4 pounds. The metaphorical weight is your burden to carry. Patricia placed a large bound book on the table. Heavy cardstock cover. Title embossed, November 2021 to November 2023, a record of support. Inside, 208 receipts, professionally printed and organized. Each page showed 2 receipts side by side. Margaret's order left, Jennifer's order right. Same week, stark contrast. Jennifer stared at the book, couldn't touch it. Patricia continued reading. Additionally, to Jennifer Morrison, $1, to ensure this will cannot be contested as accidental omission. You are intentionally receiving minimal inheritance because you provided minimal support. David received the bulk of Margaret's remaining estate, $47,000. Patricia explained, your mother wanted David to have this because he maintained relationship despite distance. She wanted Jennifer to have the receipts because they represent what Jennifer actually contributed to the relationship. Evidence of inadequacy. Jennifer finally spoke. Can I contest this? Patricia, you can try. But your mother left detailed explanation for why you're receiving this bequest. The receipts are documented evidence of 2 years of inadequate support. Any judge will see them as appropriate symbolic inheritance. Plus, contesting would make this public again. Do you want another round of news coverage about how you're fighting your mother's will because you don't want the receipts that prove you fed her canned soup while eating salmon? Jennifer took the book. Heavy, 4 pounds of paper. 2 years of documented disparity. Week after week of proof that she'd valued luxury for herself over adequacy for her mother. She drove home with the receipt book on her passenger seat. Got home. Carried it inside. Placed it on the dining room table. Opened it. Page 1, November 7, 2021. Margaret's order, $67.84. Jennifer's order, $348.23. The contrast visual, immediate, devastating. Jennifer closed the book. Couldn't look further. But couldn't throw it away either. It was her inheritance, her mother's final message, her permanent reminder. 4 pounds of receipts. 2 years of inadequacy. Her legacy from her mother. November 2026. 2 years after the grocery receipts first went viral. 5 months after Margaret Foster died. Jennifer Morrison sat in her small Dundalk rental, the receipt book on a shelf where she saw it daily. She'd tried putting it away, in a closet, in a storage box, out of sight. But removing it from view felt like denial, like pretending it didn't exist. So she kept it visible. Penance. Reminder. Permanent evidence of her failure as a daughter. She'd opened it exactly once since the will reading. Couldn't finish. Made it through 15 paired receipts before the weight of it, not physical weight but moral weight, became unbearable. 15 weeks of proof that she'd fed her mother poverty-level rations while eating luxury meals. Work was adequate. The non-profit job paid enough to survive. She'd never have her marketing career back. That door was permanently closed. But she could pay bills, contribute to household expenses with Mark, maintain modest living. Their marriage had survived, though survived was generous. Mark stayed, but the warmth was gone. He was there, present, functional, not loving, not close, just there. The grocery receipts had killed something between them. He couldn't look at Jennifer the same way after seeing her defend feeding her mother canned soup while eating organic salmon. Jennifer thought often about what she could have done differently. The intervention points where everything could have changed. November 2021, when setting up Instacart, she could have said, "Mom, order whatever you want. I mean it, spare no expense." Could have checked her orders, seen the $68 totals, called and said, "Mom, why are you only ordering $68? Please get more. Get fresh vegetables, get quality meat. I want you eating well." Anytime 2021 to 2023, she could have reviewed the receipts, could have seen the disparity, could have voluntarily increased Margaret's budget, ensured her mother ate as well as Jennifer's own family ate. November 2023, when she received the accountant's call, she could have said, "You're absolutely right. I've been restricting my mother's food while eating lavishly myself. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll fix it immediately." January 2024, when the Baltimore Sun article published, she could have responded with genuine apology. "I was wrong. I provided inadequate support while living luxuriously. I'm deeply sorry. I'm committed to changing." So many intervention points, so many opportunities to acknowledge wrongdoing and commit to change. She'd chosen pride at every juncture, chosen defense over admission, chosen rationalization over responsibility. Now her mother was dead. The relationship was permanently unrepaired. The receipts were her only inheritance, not money, not heirlooms, not love, just documentation of inadequacy. Jennifer wondered sometimes what her mother had wanted. Did Margaret want Jennifer destroyed professionally? Want her marriage damaged? Want her living in financial constraint? Probably not. Probably Margaret had just wanted Jennifer to see what the receipts showed, that supporting someone inadequately while calling it generous is exploitation. That $68 in canned goods isn't adequate support when you're spending $340 on organic luxury. That claiming tax deductions for minimal support is profiting from someone else's poverty. Margaret probably wanted acknowledgement, apology, changed behavior. Instead she got defense, rationalization, and Jennifer's continued insistence that she'd been generous. So Margaret left Jennifer the receipts. Because if words wouldn't teach the lesson, maybe physical evidence would. Maybe holding 4 pounds of paired receipts showing 2 years of disparity would force Jennifer to confront what she'd done in ways that articles and criticism hadn't. Jennifer picked up the receipt book occasionally, held its weight, didn't open it, just held it, felt the physical mass of 2 years of documented inadequacy. 4 pounds of paper proving she'd valued her own comfort over her mother's dignity. The grocery receipt scandal had changed thousands of lives beyond Jennifer's. The hashtag Check Your Grocery Receipts movement continued years later. Adult children examining their own support patterns, increasing budgets for elderly parents, ensuring quality matched what they provided their own families. Elder advocacy organizations reported significant upticks in support adequacy. Not universal. Millions of elderly people still received minimal help, but measurable improvement. Adult children who'd seen Margaret's receipts and checked their own, found disparities, adjusted them before it became scandal. Jennifer's destruction had taught lessons to others. Her refusal to acknowledge inadequacy until forced had shown people what not to do. Her receipts, made public, analyzed, shared millions of times, had become cautionary tale. But Jennifer herself? She'd learned the lesson too late. After career lost, relationship destroyed, mother dead. The receipts were her inheritance not because Margaret was cruel, but because Jennifer had refused every other teaching method. December 2026. The holidays. Third Christmas since the receipts went viral. Second Christmas since Margaret died. Jennifer alone with Mark and their 2 sons, who were uncomfortable around her now. Old enough to have read the articles, seen the receipts online, understood what their mother had done. Her older son, Ryan, 18. Did you really feed Grandma canned soup while we ate organic salmon? Jennifer couldn't lie. Yes. Why? Because I thought I was being generous by helping at all. Because I didn't think about whether the help was adequate, just whether I was providing help. Because I prioritized our comfort over her dignity. That's fucked up, Mom. I know. Ryan didn't speak to her the rest of the holiday. Neither did his younger brother. They weren't cruel. Just disappointed, distant, aware their mother had failed morally and refused to acknowledge it until it destroyed everything. Jennifer thought about the receipt book upstairs on the shelf, about Margaret's final message to her. This is who you were. This is what you did. Live with it. She was living with it every day. In unemployment turned underemployment. In marriage damage. In her son's disappointment. In her own shame that had come too late to matter. The receipts had told the truth about Jennifer's priorities, had exposed that she valued organic salmon over her mother's adequate nutrition, had documented 2 years of exploitation disguised as generosity. Jennifer had spent $35,360 on her family's luxury groceries, while spending $7,072 on her mother's survival ration. 5-to-1 ratio. That number defined her now. Would define her forever. Some people are remembered for their achievements, some for their character, some for their failures. Jennifer Morrison would be remembered for her receipts, for feeding her mother $68 in canned soup weekly while eating $340 in luxury meals and defending it as adequate, for claiming tax deductions for minimal support, for refusing to acknowledge inadequacy until her career, reputation, and relationship with her mother were destroyed. The grocery delivery receipts had exposed her, documented her, defined her. Margaret Foster had died at 79, but her receipts lived forever. Digital records that would never disappear. Cautionary tale shared thousands of times annually. Evidence that supporting someone isn't the same as supporting them adequately. Jennifer's 4-pound receipt book sat on the shelf. Inheritance from a mother she'd failed. Legacy of inadequacy. Permanent reminder that some mistakes are documented, undeniable, and unforgettable. The receipts didn't lie. They never had. They never would. $68 versus $340. Canned soup versus salmon. Survival versus luxury. 2 years measured in grocery orders. A lifetime measured in regret. The receipts told that story. Every page. Every paired comparison. Every week of documented disparity. Jennifer's inheritance. Margaret's final lesson. Truth that weighed exactly 4 pounds but felt infinite.